Hey everyone, welcome back to Bix Book Summary. I'm Bix, your guide to life-changing books that help us better navigate life and relationships. Today we're exploring Why Does He Do That? By Lundy Bancroft, a book that pulls back the curtain on the minds of angry and controlling men and sheds light on the patterns of abuse that are often misunderstood or overlooked. Now, I know this is a heavy topic, but if you've ever found yourself confused, questioning, or blaming yourself in a toxic relationship, or if you just want to understand these dynamics better, this book is a must-read. And let's be honest, sometimes we don't see the signs until we're too deep into it. That's why Bancroft's work is so powerful. He helps us spot these patterns, understand what's really happening, and most importantly, reclaim our power. In this video, we'll walk through the subtle and not-so-subtle control tactics abusers use, the dangerous myths surrounding abuse, and practical steps toward healing and clarity. I'll share real-life stories from the book and break down how we can recognize these red flags before it's too late. Let's dive into this eye-opening book. One of the first and most crucial lessons Bancroft shares is that abuse isn't about anger or communication issues. It's about entitlement and control. Let me say that again. Entitlement and control. Now, I want you to picture this scenario. Kristen meets Maury, and at first, he seems like the perfect partner. Charming, thoughtful, and always attentive. But once they move in together, Maury starts making little comments. At first, it's subtle. Are you really going to wear that out? Or do you have to talk to that guy at work so much? Kristen brushes it off as concern. But then it escalates. Maury becomes moody and distant when Kristen spends time with her friends. He criticizes her career choices and questions her intelligence in conversations. Kristen starts walking on eggshells, constantly trying to keep Maury happy. And here's the kicker. She blames herself. Bancroft explains that this confusion is deliberate. Abusers often present themselves as loving and supportive at first, drawing their partners in, only to assert dominance later. They operate under the belief that their opinions, needs, and feelings matter more than anyone else's. But here's where it gets tricky. Society often frames this as a communication problem or a stress issue. Bancroft shatters that myth. He makes it clear these behaviors are intentional and rooted in a mindset where the abuser believes they have the right to control their partner. Understanding this mindset is crucial. Once you recognize that these patterns are not accidents but deliberate choices, you can stop blaming yourself and start reclaiming your power. Let's talk about control tactics. Bancroft lays it out plainly. Abuse isn't always physical. In fact, some of the most damaging forms of abuse are psychological. Imagine Barbara, a character in one of Bancroft's case studies. Her husband Fran never raised a hand against her, but he controlled nearly every aspect of her life. Whenever Barbara made plans with friends, Fran would suddenly become withdrawn and sulky. If she spent money without consulting him, he would guilt-trip her, saying things like, "I work so hard, and you're out here wasting our money." Over time, Barbara stopped socializing altogether to keep the peace. She even gave up hobbies she loved because Fran found ways to undermine her confidence. Bancroft explains that this isn't about love or concern, it's about control. And what's even more insidious is the gaslighting that often accompanies these tactics. Fran would tell Barbara she was being too sensitive or imagining things whenever she confronted him. That psychological manipulation made her doubt her own perceptions. One of the most powerful lessons from Bancroft's work is this. Abuse doesn't have to be loud to be damaging. Sometimes, it's the quiet erosion of confidence and autonomy that leaves the deepest scars. Here's a quick reflection exercise. Think about any relationships in your life, romantic, familial, or even friendships. Are there patterns where someone consistently undermines your choices, isolates you, or makes you doubt yourself? Those are red flags, and recognizing them is the first step toward reclaiming your voice. One of the most insidious aspects of abusive relationships, as Bancroft explains, is their cyclical nature. You may think an abusive relationship is just a series of explosive incidents, but it's more like a carefully crafted loop that keeps the victim trapped. Imagine Laura and Paul. Paul has a short temper, and when things go wrong at work, he lashes out at Laura, sometimes verbally, sometimes by giving her the cold shoulder for days. But then, after the tension has reached its peak, Paul apologizes with tears in his eyes. He brings flowers, makes grand promises to change, and for a while, life feels perfect. Laura clings to this version of Paul, believing that their relationship has turned a corner. But it never lasts. Soon, the tension builds again, leading to another abusive incident. Bancroft calls this the cycle of abuse. There's a tension-building phase, an abusive incident, followed by a honeymoon period where the abuser appears remorseful and affectionate. This pattern creates a dangerous dynamic where victims stay because they believe things will permanently improve. Here's a hard truth. The honeymoon phase is a manipulation tactic to keep the partner invested. It's not genuine change. It's part of the control strategy. Real change requires long-term accountability and a willingness to address the abusive mindset, something many abusers are unwilling to do. Recognizing this cycle is empowering because it breaks the illusion of hope that keeps victims stuck. If you're in a relationship where the pattern repeats despite promises to change, it's time to reconsider whether this is love or control disguised as love. A common and dangerous myth in abusive relationships is the idea that the victim somehow provokes the abuse. Bancroft dismantles this narrative, emphasizing that no one is responsible for another person's harmful behavior. Let me tell you about Kristen again. Whenever Maury exploded at her, he would say things like, "You made me do this. If you weren't so difficult, I wouldn't get so angry." At first, Kristen fought back, insisting that she wasn't doing anything wrong. But over time, she started believing him. She thought, maybe if I just change the way I speak to him or avoid certain topics, he won't get upset. Bancroft explains that this line of thinking is exactly what the abuser wants. By shifting the blame onto the victim, they avoid accountability and reinforce their control. Here's the truth. Everyone faces stress, disappointment, and anger. But how we respond to those emotions is a choice. Abusers choose to react with aggression because it serves their need for dominance. This realization is crucial for anyone in a controlling relationship. If you're constantly changing your behavior to avoid triggering someone else's anger, it's not love, it's manipulation, and it's never your fault. Bancroft dives into the many excuses that abusers use to justify their behavior. These excuses are often convincing and play on societal misconceptions, making it difficult for victims to see the abuse for what it is. One common excuse is stress. Let's revisit Mark, who repeatedly lashes out at his partner Lisa during arguments. His justification? "I'm just under so much pressure at work." At first, Lisa empathizes with him, believing that his behavior is a temporary result of his stressful job. But Bancroft points out a crucial distinction. Stress doesn't cause abuse, entitlement does. Plenty of people experience stress without resorting to control or intimidation. Abusers use stress as a convenient excuse to avoid accountability. Another common excuse is alcohol or substance abuse. Bancroft acknowledges that while substances can lower inhibitions, they don't create abusive tendencies. Abusers who drink are still making a choice to hurt their partners. Alcohol may amplify behavior, but it's not the root cause. And then there's the classic, "I had a tough childhood" excuse. Bancroft emphasizes that while past trauma can influence behavior, it doesn't excuse hurting others. Plenty of people with difficult upbringings choose to build healthy, respectful relationships. The takeaway? Recognizing these excuses for what they are, deflections of responsibility, is a game changer. Abusers don't need more excuses. They need accountability. And survivors don't need to internalize that blame. One of the most heart-wrenching yet crucial sections of Bancroft's book focuses on the impact of abuse on children. Many victims of abusive relationships believe that as long as their children aren't physically harmed, they'll be okay. But Bancroft reveals that simply witnessing abuse can leave deep emotional scars on young minds. Let's look at Marissa, who stayed with her husband James for years because she wanted to provide a stable home for their children, Sophie and Ben. Marissa believed that shielding them from James's angry outbursts was enough, but she didn't realize the extent to which her children were internalizing the dysfunction. Sophie became anxious and withdrawn, always anticipating the next argument. Ben, on the other hand, began mimicking his father's behavior, being bossy and dismissive toward his mother and even his friends at school. Bancroft explains that children living in abusive environments often develop unhealthy coping mechanisms that can carry into adulthood. They may struggle with trust issues, low self-esteem, or even replicate the abusive dynamics in their own relationships. One of the hardest but most important decisions Marissa made was to leave James and seek therapy for herself and her children. Bancroft emphasizes that breaking the cycle requires not only removing the children from the abusive environment, but also actively helping them process and heal from what they've experienced. The takeaway is clear. Staying for the children isn't protecting them. It's exposing them to patterns that can shape their future in harmful ways. The greatest gift you can give your children is a safe, loving environment where respect and communication are the norm. Leaving an abusive relationship is one of the bravest and most challenging decisions a person can make. Bancroft provides a compassionate yet practical roadmap for this journey, emphasizing the importance of preparation, support, and self-reclamation. Elena, one of the women featured in the book, had endured years of emotional and financial abuse. Her partner controlled every aspect of her life, from how she spent money to who she was allowed to see. When Elena finally decided to leave, she felt overwhelmed and uncertain. But with the help of a local support group and legal counsel, she was able to create a plan that ensured her safety and financial stability. The journey didn't stop at physical separation. Elena had to rebuild her confidence and identity piece by piece. She started journaling daily affirmations, reconnected with her love for painting, and built a network of friends who uplifted her. Slowly but surely, she rediscovered herself outside of the toxic relationship. Bancroft makes it clear that healing is a process. It's not just about physically leaving, but about unlearning the narratives that abusers plant in your mind, like the belief that you're unworthy or incapable. His advice? Surround yourself with people who reinforce your value, seek professional guidance if possible, and take small steps toward rediscovering your passions. Freedom isn't just about being away from the abuser. It's about reclaiming your voice and joy. Why does he do that? Isn't just a book, it's a lifeline. Lundy Bancroft's compassionate yet unflinching exploration of abusive relationships provides clarity, validation, and hope for anyone seeking to understand or escape these toxic dynamics. If there's one message I want you to take away, it's this: abuse is never the victim's fault. Understanding the patterns and mindset of abusers is a crucial step in breaking free and building a life rooted in respect, love, and dignity. I hope this summary has given you valuable insights and the courage to either take action for yourself or support someone you care about. Remember, knowledge is power, and healing is always possible. If you want to support the channel, consider grabbing a copy of Why Does He Do That through the link in the description. I truly appreciate it. Please like this video, share it with someone who might need these lessons, and subscribe to Bix Book Summary for more life-changing book breakdowns. And hey, if you've read this book or have insights of your own, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay empowered, stay compassionate, and never forget your worth. See you in the next one.